Welcome to IROC Business with Confidence, the podcast where passion meets profit without the pressure of a big price tag. I'm your host, Corey Fonville Foster, transformational speaker, certified business coach, trainer, and the CEO behind the mic. In every episode, we dive deep into the heart of entrepreneurship, bringing you stories, strategies, and tips to monetize your passions while maintaining your budget. Whether you're a budding entrepreneur or looking to scale up, this is your go-to resource for affordable sales and marketing strategies. Join us as we interview small business experts from around the globe, sharing their journeys, challenges, and the solutions that propelled them to success. IROC Business with Confidence podcast is here to demystify the process of running a successful business on a budget. Get ready to transform your entrepreneurial dreams into reality, one episode at a time. All right. Hello, and welcome back to the IROC Business with Confidence podcast. I am your host, Corey Fonville Foster, and as usual, guys, I'm excited. I'm always excited when we get to bring on amazing experts, people who are the creme de la creme, the industry leaders, the people who are moving and shaking their industry, and today is no different. The title of today's episode is Authentic Impact, Bridging Brand and Social Justice. We have never had a guest like this before, so as you guys know, get your pen and paper ready because you guys will be learning a lot today. So today on IROC Business with Confidence, we're honored to welcome Shannon O'Malley, a trailblazer at the intersection of branding and social justice. With a rich background from preventing child sexual exploitation in Thailand to advocating for adolescent girls through corporate philanthropy and Nike, Shannon's journey is a testament to the transformative power of brands. Leading significant initiatives like thelifestory.org and contributing to social justice through film and strategic communications, Shannon's work embodies the essence of making an impact. Join us as we delve into her story, exploring how storytelling and social justice converge to create meaningful change. Let's bring up Shannon. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Corey. Thank you so much. That was like, whoa, who are you talking about?
You are, like I told you before we started, I went through just information about you that my team gave me, and I was like, who is this? She seems amazing. She seems like my type of jam, because I love when people are heart-centered. And it sounds like that your heart is in the right place, not only in a small sense, a lot of us stay in our little bubbles in our communities, but you have gone worldwide. So I'm just so excited to have you with us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. So we always like to start at the beginning. So tell us, first of all, what is a social impact strategist? Because I saw that's what you are, and how did you get into the field?
Amazing. I think that's a great question, and it's something I ask myself often. I feel like social impact is a broad term, but it's also a little bit trendy right now. So it's been the field that my career has been in for the last 10, 15 years, really trying to find this intersection of how do you do good work in the world and make a difference in a meaningful way. And how do you get people behind it that wouldn't be in your traditional nonprofit fields, right? We have the humanitarian sector. We have people that are doing incredible work in issues and on like subjects that they are really passionate about. But how do you open that aperture and make sure that the umbrella reaches people that maybe aren't thinking about these issues on a daily basis or aren't getting paid to think about these issues? And when I was in school, there wasn't really a field around corporate social responsibility or corporate philanthropy, but I had this desire to kind of bridge those things of like companies in the private sector have money and all of these incredible NGOs and nonprofits are needing money. And so how do we bring that together? And it's not just money, it's like what are the brand elements? What are the business tactics that we can apply to issues to make a difference globally? So that's kind of how I got started in this sector. And the social impact strategist is a title that tries to be all-encompassing, knowing that I'm not a designer or a nurse practitioner or something that common terminology can encompass. Social impact really gets after all different sorts of communities, all different issues, and ways to uniquely make a difference for folks who are impacted by different systems or issues.
Oh, I love it. It sounds amazing. It sounds like exactly what it's called. So that works. And I love that you saw a gap. You saw a place where you fit in and you kind of created your own lane, which sounds amazing. I know a lot of the people listening are currently creating their own gap or looking for a gap and trying to find where they fit into this world of entrepreneurship. So I love that you kind of found a place where you fit comfortably. So something that I want to talk about is storytelling, because when I was going through like how you do your social justice and how you work with brands, storytelling kept coming up. So how do you utilize storytelling as a tool for social justice in the work that you do with your clients? And why do you believe that it's an effective strategy?
That's a great question. Storytelling is a unique tactic in the sense that it reaches people's hearts before their minds. And especially when you're working in issues that are talking about systems, governments, or abstract issues, being able to relate it to the individual and what is this person's unique experience and how can we illuminate these system failures or these challenges through the individual story. And if we can use storytelling as a channel, it is able to just reach more people at a different level. People maybe don't have the patience or depth of like understanding to really get after the nuance and complexities of systems or issues that are impacting folks. But if you tell the story from the person being impacted, you can reach people in a different way. And I feel like that's a really beautiful way to make change. And I'm also seeing that the nonprofit sector also see that. So we've seen documentaries, we've seen films about issues that can really make change quickly. And so how do we start to zoom the camera back and think about changing narratives or changing the way that we use pop culture and media to tell authentic stories, not sensationalized stories, and really try to get after bigger change in a way that storytelling allows for folks to get after quicker than, studying for a master's degree or reading a 300-page book. And that book can also be storytelling, but in the ways that we've tried to explore different creative outlets. It just is a means to getting issues out there in ways that people can relate to.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. When you were talking, I thought about back when I was a baby entrepreneur, I had a client that worked, the organization was about children's hospice. So children who were terminally ill and they were trying to fundraise, and she had to give a speech to fundraise. And she had a hard time because she said, it's such a serious kind of somber issue. How do I ask people for money? And I said, tell them a story. Tell them about the people that you were able to support, how the resources and how those resources impacted not only that individual, but their families. And I said, it's okay to add a little humor. It's okay to add different emotions. We know it's a serious topic. The people who gather in the room already know it's a serious topic, but through hearing the good, the bad, and everything in between, they're able to connect in a human way. That makes sense.
Exactly.
And I think that helped her. So when you were talking, I was like, I remember that. And I think, look, I should probably use that more. Storytelling is so impactful. But with storytelling, I think about sometimes people just struggle with being authentic, right? We have some people who tell stories like fibs, and we have people that tell genuine stories. And I think some people find it hard to, with all the different, media that's coming their way, people are asking for money or support. They have a hard time kind of seeing through what's real and what's not. And so for us, if we want to get into this or add some type of philanthropy within our organizations, how can we really harness being authentic so that we don't feel like a used, car salesman and feel kind of icky in the process?
Exactly. I love that you're bringing this up because in addition to authentic, I feel like ethical storytelling in these realms is super important. And because I started my career in the nonprofit sector, I was working for an amazing organization in Thailand, and we started out as a documentary film, and then we became a prevention program with children who are at risk of being trafficked into prostitution. And sex tourism is really an issue in Thailand. It's the sex tourism capital of the world. So that's what brought us to Thailand. But that was baby Shan coming right out of college. Like, I was very naive to a lot of the world, but also really that opportunity really helped me see the power of storytelling, both because it started as a documentary and we use that as a tool to shed light on this really horrific issue. But then also, as we moved into like more of an established nonprofit, really understanding the dynamics within the field and how storytelling is used as a fundraising mechanism and where that can go really wrong. And when it's extractive, or you're trying to tell this sensationalized story, which may be rooted in truth, but you kind of like overdo it a little bit to get at the donor's heartstrings. What is that line of telling the stories that are authentic and true to get people to pay attention and raise awareness about issues, but not overdoing it, and also making sure that people whose stories we're telling, they have dignity within that, right? Like, if they are going to be the face of this issue, such as like child prostitution, like that's a really big deal, especially if you're working cross-culturally. And what does that mean if their image is attached to this issue? What does that mean for their family? So throughout my career, I feel like I've had a lot of really deep learnings around how to do storytelling that centers the person who is impacted and has them tell their story in a way that feels honorable and with dignity, and so that they feel proud to be involved, but also leaving opportunities along the way for them to bow out. Like, if, let's say they're part of this organization telling their story at 14, 15, 16, and then they kind of want to, pivot. Like, what is it to put a story out in the world, and then give folks an opportunity to maybe step away from that if they come up to a chapter in their life they're like, yep, I don't need to be part of this right now, or I don't want this to be part of my public facing story anymore. So I think with authentic storytelling, I quickly go to ethical storytelling, and what is the responsibility as storytellers to make sure the person whose story you're elevating feels confident and they trust you with their story. So you need to make sure you're a good steward of this. And that just is rooted in deep listening and deep understanding, and sometimes just letting go of your creative expectation for, the human who's at the center of this.
Yeah, I feel like the way you're saying it, it's such a fine line, because of course you want an end result. Of course you want to kind of help the greater good, but it does matter about the people that you're impacting right now and how they feel within the process. Because when you were talking, I'm just thinking about all of the types of things that I've seen where especially kids are involved. And I'm like, I wonder who gave somebody permission and how they're going to feel growing up when that story that was told wasn't, something that they agreed to share. And it's a very teeter-totter type of thing, because you have to look at it from both sides. And it's kind of like with great
power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
Is that it?
Responsibility. Thank you. I knew you were in my head. I was like, yeah, because it is, especially for us as entrepreneurs, because that is who most of our audience is. It is our responsibility. You can't slough it off to someone else. It's our responsibility to be on top of that, because I know a lot of even for-profit companies that want to have some bit of activism or some bit of philanthropy or a cause they're connected with, but it is our responsibility to make sure that whatever we're aligned with the work is being done ethically and responsibly and true to the audience, and having them as the forefront of our thoughts and our care and our concern. So I love that you brought that up. And usually we don't have this in our podcast, but my team had a question for you, and I think it kind of goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about. They asked, can you share how brands can authentically contribute to social justice issues without falling into performative activism?
That's a great question.
That was your concern. Yes. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think this relates to the previous question in really holding folks, if we're still sticking with storytelling, folks that you're bringing into the process as the true experts, right? They're not just this person who has a story that we're trying to, extract from them, and really compensating them as if they are any other consultant or agency that you're working with. And I feel like that is, if I could translate anything to companies or brands who are trying to do social impact work, is if you're going to be connecting to an issue, or particularly folks who are activists or movement leaders within that issue, truly treating them as if they are any other consultant. It's not a handout. They shouldn't be expected to do this work for free, or for a little compensation. So I think, to me, that's like the biggest kind of easy check for any company or any brand is, how to do this. How to compensate other agencies, other folks. So use those same values and same principles. But to your deeper question around performative activism, it really depends on the company or the brand, the issue, like, why do you care about this issue? And trying to find alignment with the deeper why. And I feel like there are natural pathways or partnerships for brands and issues, or brands and communities. And so, like, dive into that, go deeper, make sure that is a cornerstone of everything that you do. And don't have it just be this add-on initiative of, oh, we work in this community, let's do a 5K for this cause and we'll change the cause once a year. Really just building authentic connection to the issue and the communities that you're trying to work with. And then I also think, with social impact, like I said at the start of this call, like, it's trendy. I think that's rooted in some really amazing intentions, but it's also, there's a business profit side of things, right? And so it's pretty clear when companies aren't doing it with like a deeper purpose, and consumers are going to see that. People who are your audience are going to be able to tell when you're not living your truth, whether that's in how you operate your business or how you're interacting with your audiences in the world around you. And then the last thing I'll say, I think a really easy example of what performative activism looks like in corporate America is, we all saw it in 2020 after the murder of George Floyd, and businesses were finally like, oh, this is racism. Oh, we need to fix this, right? And there was this urgency, which is rooted in white supremacy, to fix it, right? We have to do something now. We have to put a DEI program in place. We have to do a training, and we have to just like do this quickly. And as a lot of us expected, that didn't sustain for more than a year or two, right? There was one company that I started working with in 2020 who we were in deep partnership and deep relationship building on like how to do it right. And I feel like the tactics that we've created together has allowed for this program within their company to sustain. And now we're in 2024 and still doing it, and still feeling like the conversations that we're elevating are important, as we're now reaching kind of like the backlash of DEI and things coming out of 2020.
Yeah, it's so crazy. I saw the shift from the inside because I was working with a lot of consultants who were ed consultants doing that work. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy because when it happened, everybody was like, I want to book you, and they were booked and busy. And then all of a sudden they were like, we don't want to talk about that. We're getting rid of that part of our organization. And it was like, oh, so we're changing it too. So we did it so that we could look like we were doing the work. And then once everything fizzled down, it's like, okay, we don't have to worry about it anymore. Even as recently, I don't know if you, because I'm always on social media, but it wasn't an organization, but there was like a big angel tree phenomenon that happened this past Christmas, where rich people were like, oh, angel tree exists, and they would go out and buy, and they would videotape them buying gifts for children who were in need, connected to like Salvation Army and other organizations. And while I was happy for the kids, because at the end of the day, we want the kids to have amazing Christmases, I once had to use the Salvation Army when I didn't have money to get my kid something. And I felt like, as you watch the video and you get to the 20th video, the 50th video, the 100th video of these very rich people buying these angel trees and saying, oh, I'm buying all this stuff, throwing things in their cart, I said, this is very performative, because you could easily have done it, sent it in, but the fact that you recorded it, you made multiple episodes of it, you put it on all the platforms. I'm like, you didn't do this out of the kindness of your heart. It doesn't feel the same. And so I think we as individuals, not even just organizations and brands, have to decide, like, think about that. Why are we doing things? I like that you brought that up, because are you doing it out of the kindness of your heart, or are you doing it so that people see that you're doing it? Again, I'm thankful that people did it, but however, I think we as humans need to start thinking of, why are we doing it, and are we doing it to show off to someone else, or are we doing it because we really do care about the heart of the matter, and we really do want to have change, and we believe in the change that we are working with, because that matters too. Something I do want to jump into is, I do work with a lot of consultants who have nonprofits or have like a nonprofit portion to their businesses. And I always have to tell them, like, I understand your heart is in this, you're passionate about this, but you got to make some money to keep the wheels going. And it's so hard because, one, the people around them are saying, well, this should be free. Or they're saying, well, you should just live off of grants, and figure it out and just give all the money to the organization. But what do you say about, one, them taking care of themselves, but also should they be able to live off of these organizations if they have a nonprofit?
That's such a great question, and something I've grappled with my entire career. I think especially after I finished my degrees, really sitting at this intersection of, like, what do I do now? These organizations need money, like that's their primary request. And I could either contribute my skills and talents and knowledge and work for a nonprofit and be always asking for money, or I could go into the private sector and I can make a bunch of money and not work on anything that's related to the issues I care about, but then in my free time or whatever that looks like, donate my skills, but also be that resource financially for these nonprofits. So I feel like that is something that's just a tension I've held my entire career. And now that I've moved into the space of entrepreneurship and working in different sectors, really starting to understand both my worth, and also that just because you're doing what some people might think is charity work, it doesn't mean you have to lower your rates or lower your fees, because this work comes at a cost, and it shouldn't change if I'm doing it for a private company or a nonprofit. And I think it gets a little bit tricky as a consultant when I'm working with nonprofit clients, because I want to do the work, I care about the work, and I also have to pay my bills, right? So finding that sweet spot of what is a number I feel good about as a consultant doing this work that also meets the needs and the budget restraints that maybe a nonprofit has. And in my own practice, I feel like I've started to balance that with increasing my rates for corporate clients and maybe having a little bit of a lower rate for nonprofits, which just goes against exactly what I said not to do. But finding that balance and making sure that you feel good about the work that you're doing regardless. And this goes to a bigger question of marketing and branding. And we know that it's powerful. Companies have budgets because it works, right? We are pouring resources into how do we talk about our products? How do we market our products? How do we get them to the consumers? And there's this disconnect when you get into the humanitarian aid sector or nonprofit sector of you're not actually allowed to spend that money on marketing, which is unfortunate, because I feel we know that those tactics work. We know that that's what gets people's attention, and that's how you ultimately drive more resources towards these issues. But there's just this social stigma that, if you work for nonprofits, you should not be making money and you can't spend money, which is a bigger question than I can answer what to do there.
No, I like what you said, and I appreciate you being transparent, because I think a lot of us struggle with pricing just in general, but definitely when it comes to causes near and dear to our heart. We, over the years in my company, have changed our model. We used to have a nonprofit number and a for-profit number, and then I realized that sometimes the nonprofits needed so much more help because they were very heart-centered, but they didn't have a solid business, that it was a lot more work. And I said, well, we can't like the numbers weren't making sense for the amount of work we were doing. And so now it's just kind of clear cut across the board. But it doesn't mean in a couple of years when business is bigger and we have more flexibility that we won't change that again. So I like that you were transparent, like this season of life, this is what I'm doing. And I think I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think you have to do, like you said, what feels good in you. And the people that are meant to work with you will work with you, and the people who aren't meant to work with you in this season of life aren't, and they may come back in another time, or they may find other opportunities, and that's okay. I feel like there's somebody for everyone. And so I think just being true to yourself and being able to sleep at night. I know you and myself, I think we both agree we're not out here just taking people's money for the sake of taking it. Like you said, we got to keep the lights on. We got to be able to pay bills. We have to be able to fly here and there to do the work. We have to be able to have internet. We have to be able to eat. And we should be able to do that, especially if people are being able to utilize our intellectual property to advance their causes and advance their businesses. Now, with that being said, I do want to go into personal self-care for a second, because, we talked about some pretty heavy topics today on this episode, and they can be very physically, mentally, spiritually draining. So how have you, especially because you're in Thailand, you're all over doing stuff, how do you balance like your self-care to like avoid burnout, and how do you maybe assist your clients in avoiding that as well?
It's not for lack of failure. I have really had a hard time balancing this throughout my career, and I've had some pretty low points where I've had to look at the sustainability of my career, and if I can't figure out this piece, there's no way I can continue to do this as a profession. And so before becoming a solopreneur or a freelance consultant, I was at an agency doing consulting work, so working with companies in the same realm of like what is the intersection of social justice and brand and communications, but it was still a creative agency, and we still had very corporate structures in place that were demanding and didn't leave spaciousness for self-care or trauma-informed practices and things like that. And we were a very lean company, and so some insights I had from that were just prioritizing what's important, right? Like, we are motivated to do good work in the world, and that's important, and it's noble, or all the things you want to call it. But at the end of the day, if I don't get an agenda out to a client, like, I'm not going to be harming this community, right? Like, so trying to figure out, like, I'm not going to save anyone, and really coming to terms with that. Like, yes, I'm motivated by the work that I'm doing and the communities I'm working for, but I had to like do quite a bit of an ego check there of like what's important and why, just to create like space for my own bandwidth and my own priorities. So that was one big thing. And then I feel like working in a normal like corporate culture where you're grinding and you're working 40 plus hours a week, when you're dealing with heavy issues and you're trying to be responsible for what we were talking about around ethical storytelling, like, I had a lot of learnings around secondhand trauma, which is also known as vicarious trauma, and what is it to be a creative and listen to these stories and hold these relationships with folks and have their trust that you're going to be telling their story in a way that is honorable to them, and what is that impact on you? And I would have these wild moments where I'd come back from a film shoot or something, and I'd be doing an expense report, and I would just break down and lose it, and not realizing that these are kind of trauma responses, that because I didn't have the space to process, or it wasn't making enough money to prioritize therapy and things like that, I just it wasn't an environment that was conducive to doing this work in the long term. So switching to consulting has been a game changer, and I'm able to have more agency over the types of issues I'm working on, and like what is that emotional capacity that's needed. And then really building in like therapy is on my calendar every week, and I hold that as if it's any other client meeting, because I feel called and committed to do this work, and I need to really take care of my mental health in order to do it well.
Shout outs to therapy. I love it. Like, I have my appointment on my calendar today.
Yeah.
disappointment because, back in the day, we used to say you can't pour from an empty cup. But what we've learned is we actually should be pouring into others using our overflow and not even using the cup itself, because we need that full cup to really be able to effectively show up as ourselves. And so if you're constantly pouring into the cause that is again near and dear to your heart, and a lot of us have several causes, we're just pouring every day, all day, eventually we're going to run dry, and then who's there to help us? And so therapy is great, having outlets. Some people have their spiritual advisors, whomever, but having support, having an outlet, having the ability to realize your boundaries in certain situations, all of that I think really goes into kind of what you were saying. And I love that you talked about your personal self, because I'm like, all of us are different, and you decided, hey, if I can be in this industry, but I got to do it this way to make sure that I'm good. And I think that that's an amazing choice. And more of us should probably be taking these kinds of choices where we say, I get that I want to do this. I get that I want to be able to support this group of people, but I have to do it this way. Because if not, you're not going to be effective. You cannot, just go out here and burn yourself out and think that somehow you're going to just keep pushing on. Eventually you will shut down. Eventually you won't be any good to the people you're trying to support. So I love that you said that about your personal journey and how you found some semblance of balance and boundaries within what you do. Because this podcast is all about implementation, I do want to ask you, because I looked at the time, I'm like, oh my God, we've had a great conversation. We're almost out of time, but I do want to ask you, for people who are listening, maybe what are some strategies that you can recommend for businesses, for-profit or nonprofit, looking to integrate some type of social impact authentically into their business operations?
Yeah, I love that question. I feel like the first step I would take is what we talked about, like why? What is your purpose? Why are you even interested in doing this? And really getting clear on that. And then the second thing I would say is don't recreate the wheel. There's already so many folks out there doing incredible work. And if you're doing it from a place of ego and you want to start your own nonprofit because you want your name on it, like that's already at the wrong starting point, right? So find people in your community or in the issues that you care about and learn from them, work with them, give them resources to do the work. That would be my biggest focus, is don't spend all your resources recreating the wheel. Give to folks who are already leading movements and work locally, globally. And then put a long-term plan around it. I think that a lot of our society wants quick fixes, wants to see results immediately, but I find, especially in grant making and the nonprofit sector, like we need flexible funding and long-term funding, because you're not going to see changes, real systemic changes, societal changes in a 9-month grant cycle, right? Or even a 2-year grant cycle. So what does it look like to fully invest and commit for the long term and kind of release expectations of what results in impact or KPIs you want to have, or just have like a critical lens to what you're seeking and why.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing. I think that's very great advice for those who are listening, because some of us, let's just be real, some of us don't need to be out here trying to have nonprofits just for the sake of it. I love that. Some of us need to just give our talent to the organization, give our funds to the organization. People are always looking for sponsors, and I think sometimes we just got to be real. Some things we need to just be helpmates. We don't have to be the head of everything. And I think that was a great bit of advice. Before we go, I did put your website on the screen. Also, if you want to connect with Shannon on social media, this is here as well. Also, if you're listening, guys, remember, I always put everybody's information, every guest we have come on, in the show notes. Don't let this be the last time you speak with her. We only get 30 minutes, y'all. Just about 30 minutes. We can't unpack everything, give every piece of advice. But if you are looking for a consultant, especially for your nonprofit, I would say reach out. reach out, ask the questions, connect. And you never even know, you may be able to collaborate with some of the people she's worked with, maybe able to get some ideas. You may be able to throw some coins her way in some of the organizations she supports. We're going to get into that in a second. And so definitely keep your eyes, ears open for opportunities to network, collaborate, and to develop your own nonprofits as well. So before we go, I do want to let you give some shout outs to some amazing organizations that you are really passionate about. So Shannon, I will let you spend the last few moments talking about those organizations.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Corey. Yeah, so because I'm a consultant, I can't say like this is my issue or this is my organization, but I do get to partner with so many incredible organizations, both in the United States and beyond. And so a couple of them include Taking Ownership PDX, which is a organization based in Portland, Oregon, working on the Black community in Portland and working against gentrification and making sure homeowners can live and age in place. The other one I love working with is Connecting Compton. They are an incredible organization in the city of Compton, working on community engagement and breaking down barriers and stigma to community building through the equestrian and cowboy lifestyle. So they're an incredible group doing some amazing work in LA. And then right now I'm also working with the Global Fund for Women as their Everyday Feminist Fellow, and we're supporting feminist movements globally in the different ways that feminist issues show up, and what do you do if you don't call yourself a feminist, and all of the intricacies of women's rights and movements there. So that's a little bit of the work that I'm doing right now. And yeah, I'd be happy to connect with anyone afterwards, whether it's onboarding or providing advice or seeing how we might be able to partner in the future. But thank you so much, Corey. This has been amazing.
No, thank you for coming in, guys. If you want to do anything with any of these companies, I will definitely put their links. I'm sure most of them, if not all, probably have a way you can donate. Go ahead and get your pocketbooks open and definitely support these organizations because they all sound like amazing causes. But again, thank you so much for being on the podcast. You gave such amazing information, inspiration, and you also gave some good things to implement and things that I think all of us can now think about and say, how can we be authentic in the work that we do? How can we contribute? What causes are near and dear to our heart? And how can we make sure we also take care of ourselves while we do this great work? So thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. And guys, like I said, make sure that you connect with Shannon. Her information will be in the show notes. But guys, this has been another amazing episode. Remember, we drop a new episode every single week. If you haven't heard all of our past episodes, go back, listen to them. Each one is full of amazing pieces of information from experts in their field. But guys, until next time, remember, I rock, you rock, we all rock, and I will talk to you soon. A wrap on another episode of IROC Business with Confidence podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining our journey into the world of entrepreneurship. If today's episode inspired you or just gave you the tools to tackle your next business challenge, we'd love your support. Please like, share, follow, subscribe, and rate us with a glowing 5 stars. And don't forget to leave us a review. Are you an entrepreneur with a unique perspective, expertise, or actionable strategies that our audience can implement today to advance their entrepreneurial journey? We're always on the lookout for guests who are ready to share their stories and insights. If that's you, please reach out to us. Remember, entrepreneurship isn't just about the destination, it's about the journey. And here at IROC Business with Confidence, we're here to journey with you. Until next time, keep rocking your business with confidence. We can't wait to see where your entrepreneurship journey